Hey everyone, I'm sorry. Hey all you cool cats and kittens. It's me, Adam P, and welcome to my thoughts and review of the infamous Tiger King Netflix mini-series doc. First of all, I hope everyone is doing the best they can during this time. I know things are still difficult and we're still just going through the motions, but I really wish nothing but the best for everyone right now. I kind of was avoiding this show at first because it seemed like it was gonna be really overrated and just something way too hyped up. No. It was, wild. I don't know what other word to put it, but wild. Based on the other research I read, the co-directors really wanted to just do a documentary about people who own exotic animals. That was it. And then they knew that Joe Exotic wanted to have attention and he was a complete open book. So that's how they got into him. But then apparently once they started talking to him, they got more than they bargained for. Like, one of my first thoughts is just like, it really felt like a mockumentary at times. I was like, this cannot be real. This has to be a joke. This has to be, like, these people have to be completely fake. But I think these people are genuinely that invested into their career. And I think they all like having attention. So that's another thing too, is like, they're a total open book. Is Joe Exotic, did he genuinely like those animals? I think he did. But I think money and fame was his ultimate goal. And you could definitely see that once he started running for governor. That was the biggest one. And I read an article saying that what really affected Joe, apparently, was the death of his brother. That's when Joe became encapsulated with these animals. And that's when he started to really like the spotlight. Also, I feel like the docuseries as a whole was well paced and it always kept your attention. For example, the first episode, you know Joe is in jail, so you're like, what happened? What'd you do? You keep seeing him threatening these really crazy stuff towards Carol, who is on the other side being pro-animal rights. What? I don't know. I feel like he just wants a lot of people to love him and be devoted to him, and maybe he's trying to fill something in his life. And, you know, I feel like him coming out and him trying to drive himself off a cliff was a big thing. And once again, the death of his brother, I feel like really affected him. He loved grabbing attention. So I think that's why he said all those horrible and alarming things about Carol. See, if you do episode 1, it may be a little bit hard to get through. It may not be your cup of tea with animal abuse and stuff. It is very alarming. Episode 2 is when it gets even more interesting. You're like, what's going on here? Wait, there is a lot of tension. You can feel it. But episode 3 is like, what the hell? I was on Carol's side at first, but then they were talking about how she keeps them in cages until they die, and they pay people to come to her place. So I personally believe she is also a businesswoman, but I think she has more, I don't know, I want to say she has more empathy towards these cats, but if you're not doing anything for them and keeping them in those tight cages, it's a little bit, I don't know, dude. She just seems like she wants to do what Joe does and Doc does, but shut it down. But she is doing it off of volunteers, and she's trying to make it based off of, like, you're doing good to these animals. But it's like, are you doing good to these animals? I think Doc and Joe were more like straight up, okay, you're doing something really messed up to these animals. Especially Doc. I was like, oh my goodness. One of my favorite parts of the documentary, though, was when they talked with the girl who used to be an employee for Doc in the zoo, because that was really alarming, and I totally believe everything she says. Like, they ran it like a cult. They switched up their names. He hired them really young, and then he wants him, because they're so inexperienced, he wants to be their caregiver so much so that they depend and rely on him, which is it's just very predatory. Because her point especially was like, you know, cults are made to feel like you can go whenever you want. However, it's the fear of you don't know what is there without the cult. Like, you have nothing without it. And I think that's what he made. That's why he picked them up at 17, did sexual things with them. Near the end of the show, though, when Joe was just, dragging all the girls, Joe claims that Doc uses gas to kill the babies of tigers after they're too old to be, used as pets. And I genuinely believe that. Because like they said, tigers, they're a lot of work. They're a lot of work to keep up. I was kind of surprised about how much they charge. It was like $600 or something. But then it's like, wow, the cost of this is very high. The documentary people were trying to be like, oh, we're just talking about, people with exotic animals. And I think was the story at first. And that's what they said with Carol, too, was we're here to promote animal safety and conservation, especially for tigers, since they're endangered. But once they started opening up a little bit more, they realized, so your husband disappeared mysteriously. So I think they were misled, and I think Carol, I'm sure, was kind of like... She should have known, though, that they were going to be like, so your husband's missing, and that's not an solved case. Like, they should have known. Another moment that really stuck out to me was when they interviewed Lewis's old family, like his ex-wife and their daughters and his secretary, because it was like, oh my God. Like, I really felt for the wife, because they were like, we were together since we were 17 and 15, and then after all this time, he leaves me for this really young girl, and it was like heartbreaking to me, I feel like. And she was very stone cold. Did you notice that? The ex-wife was stone cold. Whenever they asked her questions, she went there. She said Carol has something to gain from him being dead, and I was like, oh. And so I was really, really, really trying to be on Carol's side. I was like, but as the episode went on, I was like, oh my God. And the whole will thing happened, where in the will, it's all of his estate and money is going to his children. And then turns out someone took the wills. Carol got a new will saying she gets 90% of the pie if and when he dies. And they get 10% of it all of a sudden. And then just a little bit later, he disappeared. Yikes, 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 yikes. But her side is, he called and said he was going to Cuba. And then he never called me again. And then he left. And he just went on a plane and left. And the van was like parked near like a forest or something. But apparently her side of the story is that she is blaming the assistant. That the assistant had something to do with his disappearance, which is like, I liked hearing the lawyer's side of the view of it. He made it more clear to me, I feel like, about this in a legal stance. While everyone else had a very strong opinion towards what was going on. Tigers, there had to be some kind of remains. Their acid stomach, it is strong, but it can't go through human bones like that. So, honestly, if it wasn't Carol, I'm looking at the ex-wife. I am looking at her, okay? Because she is motivated by this. They had a whole life together, and he kept cheating on her, but then they had children, and he leaving her for a lot younger woman. I mean, how devastating is that, So I'm looking at, and she was stone cold. She had ice in her veins. Rightfully so, but I'm looking at her funny. I am. That will thing, that was like, oh boy. And I see people on Twitter saying that we are really focusing on Carol's story the most, rather than the things that Joe and Doc have done. And I do agree that to an extent, but I understand why people are really alarmed by Carol's, because that's like a murder that has been unsolved. But I do agree that, hey, we need to remember Joe and Doc, they really have done some very alarming things, and we shouldn't shy away from those. And then the other thing too, it was odd about the husband. She just wanted someone else more obedient as a husband, and you could tell he was the right choice, but something's up with Carol. Okay, if she didn't murder, I'm really trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, even though there's a lot of red flags. But I think if she didn't murder him, I think she has more information she's not telling. That's what I totally believe that. The only time I got a little bit confused and I kind of want to rewatch is during like episode 6 and 7 and 5 when they were talking about the whole plot to assassinate Carol. I was actually pretty surprised that this guy was totally comfortable talking about, Joe wanted me to murder her. And I was thinking about doing it. I was like, you're on camera, sweetheart. He must have some kind of immunity or something. I mean, I think it's pretty plain to see. I think he did want her dead. Did he actually have the nerve to go through it? Because remember, he just loved attention, I feel like. So he wanted to say or do the craziest stuff to get that attention. But to actually commit to it, it's like, that's a whole different ballpark. In a way, I kind of feel like maybe it was too weak of a case. That is why they went in and did a full search and found a lot of other dirt about animal abuse Joe has done. I think that's why they did it. Oh, and we haven't even gotten to the arson. Mike, who started the fire? Maybe the producer started the fire. But he said, why would I do it? Because that's my retirement right there. He put so much time and so much money into this show. But there's a strong case that Joe Exotic realized, they filmed some pretty alarming stuff of him doing things. Maybe someone realized you can get a lot of trouble if we show this footage. And then set that hoe on fire, including the poor alligators. The other crazy moment is when his new business partner Jeff came in. He's very alarming. The whole suffocation of his wife. Oh, I was very surprised that they showed that footage of Jeff and Joe really going at each other, being like, Joe, you've done these, that's fraud. You've been doing a lot of bad things. And I'm surprised that Joe was okay with that being filmed. I don't know. I just feel like Joe was okay with he's like the Kim Kardashian level. But maybe times 10 or times 50. The other absolutely wild moment was with one of Joe's husbands on his accidental death and the actual footage of that guy witnessing it. That was like really chilling to have that kind of footage. Oh my God. That would be so scarring. And I thought it was intentional suicide, but the more I'm reading about it, they're calling it an accidental death. So maybe he was trying to pull a prank and he realized the safety was still off. Maybe he was methed out still, I thought Joe really did genuinely care about him, but then I realized I think he cared about that someone was loyal and devoted to him, kind of like Doc. Because then, 2 weeks later, when he married another guy, weeks later, with Travis's mom being there just to make it look like she approves, and then boop, you're gone, dust, ghosted. Joe is just craving for absolute love, loyal, and affection, and people being impressed by him. And I'm glad at the end of the show, though, they pulled us right back to it, be like, look, tigers. We're focused on the endangered species of tigers and how there are more being owned than there are in the wild. My opinion right now is that there shouldn't be anybody holding tigers except for zoos, except for zoos that are actually approved, there's other things you can flex and gloat about. I feel like you just buy a really nice car instead of a tiger. Or a private zoo. So I don't think private zoos should be a thing. I don't think tigers being bred and captive. And I know selling is illegal now. But, I don't think any of it should have been a thing. So we should put I think we need to have these tigers out in the wild. It's alarming. It really is. So where do we put them, though, after deforesting everywhere? Good question. The amount of Joe Exotic and Carol and Doc costumes we're gonna get for Halloween, astronomical. So many, so much. I could see someone doing a costume of the pink groomsmen to all three of them. I can see it. Well, thank you guys so much for checking out my thoughts on Tiger King. Please let me know what your viewpoint is. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button. You can always get pop culture tea from me, Adam P. Make sure you check out my favorite things from March. And lastly, make sure you hit me up on my social media. And I will see you guys next time for more wild reviews.